Liar. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It's Monday, September 16th, 2024. Time for another show. Apparently, time for another assassination attempt. I guess. Although, it's very weird that people just, they forgot the first one, and now I guess it's time to forget the second one. In fact, it's very weird, given all the hostility out there and the resort to political violence, that no one has ever even thought about attempting to assassinate Donald Trump, which is weird. You might remind me of some incidents in the recent past. You know how these things, they fade in and out of memory. Anyway, as a matter of fact, actually, that was Elon Musk's reaction to the whole thing was, hey, it's weird that no one has tried to assassinate Biden or Harris. Like, why don't you get around to it, I guess, was what he was attempting to needle people into. So, that's awfully dangerous given the situation, say, everywhere. I was going to say Springfield, Ohio, but January 6th, everywhere in the country, all the time now, with these right-wing politicians and other weirdos, assorted weirdos, suggesting terrible things to people. And then they go ahead and do it. I don't know. I mean, we'll catch up on this. You've probably seen it. I mean, this is not the sort of thing that the news ignores entirely, although it isn't necessarily greeted with shock and outrage by the news consumers. I think everybody's kind of used to the idea that there's probably a lot of people that would like to take a shot at Trump. And the only people who are actually doing it tend to be people who kind of are, who've kind of lost it over the years. And in some cases, either we're just looking for a target of opportunity or just, we're unbalanced people in general. But the effort is on, at least in some corners of the media, to, try and find some meaning behind this thing. Of course, the initial reports are that this would-be assassin did not get to fire a shot and just was spotted in the woods around his Florida golf course. Like the Secret Service actually saw a rifle muzzle sticking out of the woods in the fence line or something and just shot at him, or at least at the rifle. And they didn't hit him, and he fled, and he jumped in a car and drove away, but somebody spotted him and took his picture of his car and license plate, and they picked him up, and hey, what do you know? He's a guy with a long history of dangerous confrontations with police, armed confrontations, standoffs, explosives charges. You wonder why somebody like that isn't, locked up, but I don't know. You wonder why people who sacked the Capitol aren't locked up in some cases. But some of them are, and the president or the presidential candidate from the Republican Party, the Law and Order Party, wants to pardon them all and let them all out. And I don't know. It just brings to mind that he was very insistent on January 6th that they remove the metal detectors. They didn't do it, but they removed the metal detectors at the Ellipse where he was giving his speech because he wanted a bigger crowd. And he was unconcerned by the fact that some of the people were known to be armed by, and expressed himself by saying, they're not here to hurt me, so it's okay. They're here to hurt somebody else. So let's let them in and rally them and charge them up and then set them on foot as an insurrectionist group toward the Capitol, and then they can be armed and hurt people there. But they're definitely not here to hurt me, except that, now at two of his favorite locations, a campaign rally and the golf course, weirdos have decided to come to hurt him. And also of some interest, of course, some corners of the press looking for ways to somehow both sides this. Isn't it true that this person has mixed ideologies? They looked on their semi-frequently used Twitter account and other social media and found a record of support for politicians of both parties. The politician of the Democratic Party being Tulsi Gabbard, who is not actually a Democrat anymore and has been apparently advising Donald Trump in his debate preparation. So good job there. Honestly, after you've seen the debate performance, it's a miracle that people aren't trying to assassinate Tulsi Gabbard if you're a Trump fan. But Well, we don't encourage such things, but it would be irresponsible not to suggest them. Anyway, so that's where we stand. The stories are coming out now, and we're getting the backgrounders and 5 things you need to know about the wackadoodle who tried to shoot Trump. And I don't know how much more you need to know. I don't know whether the guy was out for making a name for himself or just this is what he does with his spare time. And I think it's a little bit of both there. So, all right. Well, at any rate, there's plenty of other things that are in the news that more people will probably be concerned with. It is kind of odd, though, how the second time around, and just like the first time around, there's kind of a collective, it's almost as everybody says, well, we all condemn political violence, but I guess I can understand what's motivating people because that guy makes me angry and frustrated all day long every day. But I'm balanced enough to say nothing you can do about it except tell people how you feel and then vote against them. But some people don't feel that way, and it's very odd. And I have seen on social media people saying, we're calling them assassination attempts. It's just sort of like, oh, another one? Well, Trump does attract a weird crowd. Oh, well. So, Greg, how are you doing this morning? Nobody's attempting anything around your place, are they?
No, not that I know of. So,
okay.
like when the gas tank is on E, that means, I probably still have another 10 miles.
Yeah, right. He'll probably live through that.
Probably. So,
through the
a couple of things to talk about for this. To me, a shouldn't have happened. It's awful, but politically non-event.
Well, it worked the way it was supposed to in terms of the Secret Service.
Yeah,
that guy's got a gun. Get him.
And when they do their job, it's boring.
Yeah, right. And they do their job quite a lot.
They don't do their job. It's news and possibly disastrous.
Right. But no one cared about
that
to screw
up. But when they do their job, it's boring. So I just wanted to mention a couple of things. First of all, I wanted to remind people, this is a story from NBC News. And let's see if they actually date it. Sometimes they don't. February 28, 2017.
Wow, that's like the 1800s.
Well, but you remember who was president at that time.
Oh, yeah. Well, he is very old.
Trump signs bill revoking Obama-era gun checks for people with mental illnesses. The new law nullifies an Obama-backed rule that added people with mental illnesses to the National Background Check database. So when you look up karma's a bitch in the dictionary, they have this article next to it.
Yeah. That was a remarkably foolish thing to do, but he's a very foolish guy.
And basically what we're seeing is why it was so foolish.
Yeah.
The other thing,
they're not here to hurt me.
This is just me, but I was amused by this. This was not a setup. This was not fake. This was not a plant. This was not a game. No? Somebody actually brought a gun to the golf course with probably not good intent. And when I wrote that, somebody said to me on Twitter, how do you know it was really an attempt at an assassination? And I said, well, the guns aren't there, so you could cook on them.
Yeah, right. He didn't bring a 9-iron.
Said, what? And so I posted this video of a guy with a Winchester cooking bacon on the gun barrel because that's what people used to do on Twitter and YouTube when life was fun before Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Ted Cruz there's a guy with his brother, and he wraps bacon around the barrel of a Winchester and then fires off in the beautiful woods where nobody's around, nobody's going to get hurt. It's a Mythbusters thing. Can you cook bacon on a gun barrel? Turns out, yes, you can because it gets really, really hot.
Yeah.
And my point was, how do I know it was an assassination attempt? Because you don't bring a gun to the golf course with Donald Trump with backpacks.
Yeah,
a ceramic tile to act as a shield when you're trying to cook bacon. There wasn't any bacon in the backpacks.
Well, people can't afford bacon anymore. That's the reason.
Well, that's the thing, right? So, But what we do know about this guy, besides the fact that he was a nutcase and he never should have had a gun, is that he had a bizarre voting history that doesn't help you at all if you're trying to make political hay out of it. He voted for Trump, then he voted for Biden, then he wanted to vote for Nikki Haley, and he wanted Tulsi Gabbard. And his new dream was to have a Nikki Haley as president, Vivek Ramaswamy as vice president.
Oh.
That's
well, the
where
gun
he
will
was
help
politically. which means he was all over the place and doesn't mean much. But when you dig a little deeper into his background, he was obsessed with one major topic, and that is Ukraine, pro-Ukraine, wanting to recruit people from Ukraine. There's this whole thing about people in Afghanistan wanting to get out of Afghanistan, so they went to Iran.
I see.
And they wanted to get out of Iran once they got there because it wasn't really a great place to be.
It was a start.
So they wanted to volunteer, since fighting is the only thing they know, to go to Ukraine. But they couldn't because they didn't have the right visas. So this guy was supposed to be the liaison, unofficial, of course, to help Afghan fighters get into Ukraine. That was his obsession. And so whether that had anything to do with his motive, nobody knows, because the whole thing doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Also, apparently no evidence that he actually did anything about this.
No, I'm talking about what he wanted to do. Whether he actually did stuff, hard to tell.
You should hear my plan. Holy cow.
There was a New York Times interviewer who some years ago video interviewed him about the whole scheme, to get Afghan fighters there, because he was really into it. She was on Morning Joe this morning, and she said it didn't set off any alarm bells, because you have to understand, if you're in that space, most of the characters you interview are, shall we say, colorful.
Yes, I would imagine so.
No more so than any of the others, and so he didn't stand out.
Okay, well, now he does.
So
that's what he was
really
after.
all I have to say about that. Not much
what
else
can
to say.
you do?
But I did enjoy watching you cook bacon on a gun barrel, and I sent you the video. You yourself.
Fun. Okay, I may want to do that because
I don't want to play that clip on the show, though.
All right. My current memory of the bacon thing was that I guess somebody, when they did it, Ted Cruz then made one, and he
right. But you've heard of it. I mean, it was a thing.
His was a machine gun bacon. He called
machine gun bacon, right? So when I said to that poster on Twitter, listen, we are talking right now about the use of a gun and what it's for, and it's not for cooking. And he was nonplussed. There's a whole history and tradition there. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I guess so, right? It's typically not for there aren't a whole lot of things. What else can you make with it? I suppose.
It's a great paperweight if it's unloaded, I suppose.
Okay. Yeah.
Heavy enough, if you get a big enough gun.
Right, true.
But anyway.
All right.
I want to talk about politics, and I don't want to talk about this guy.
I knew it.
I want to talk about JD Vance. I want to talk about the economy. We'll get to all of that stuff.
The economy, what kind of topic is that?
Good for Harris, JD Vance, good for Harris. So let's start with JD Vance. I have a clip for you.
Oh, all right. I'm working on it.
And you perhaps can find it because I actually did. Skype allows you to answer a comment that you made, and so it stands out in the way it's formatted, so you might be able to find it a little easier. But it says at 49 seconds, above is the X clip, and as you try to find it, and as you try to set it up, I'm going to tell you about a clip we're not going to play, which is JD Vance on
drugs.
CNN with Dana Bash. The other one is also from Dana Bash, but this one I'm not going to play. I'm just going to describe to you. Wow, says Aaron Rupert, who recorded it. Dana Bash with a brutal fact check. Fact check of JD Vance after Vance smears legal Haitian immigrants in Springfield with debunked claims. Vance responds by calling her what she said disgusting, as Bash looks shocked at him for making it so personal.
Okay.
That's 3 minutes. We're not going to play that. The
all
next one, the one I want to play, is Vance claims he and Trump have to create stories about migrants eating cats and dogs so that the American media actually pays attention to the suffering of the American people.
All right. So I think that one here will load. I think we can just play it direct from here, but I'm going to have to.
If you can, then start it at 49 seconds.
It's not a 49-second clip.
No, it's a 3-minute clip, but I just want to go to the 49-second mark.
Okay. Because there's the, let's see. There's a 2-minute and a 3-minute. The second one is a 2-minute one. And you want that one at 49 seconds?
49 seconds.
All right, let's see. Also, I should probably, let's see about boosting the sound on this too. Because they usually require a little bit of...
I'll put a quarter also.
All right, please.
Otherwise it won't work.
Okay, so let's see, 49 seconds. It's probably going to be about 48, somewhere where I get to it.
That's okay.
Let's do 4, 20, 30. There we go. 48 seconds. 47.
That's right.
No, 48. Okay.
Then murdered their children. The American media totally ignored this stuff until Donald Trump and I started.
I think it's a little bit before that. All right.
No, it's exactly where I want you to start.
All right. Let me start over then.
Country who then murdered their children. The American media totally ignored this stuff until Donald Trump and I started talking about cat memes. If I have to, create stories so that the American media actually pays attention to the suffering of the American people, then that's what I'm going to do, Dana, because you guys are completely letting Kamala Harris coast. You had one interview with her. You talk about pushing back against me, Dana. You didn't push back against the fact that she cast the deciding vote on the Inflation Reduction Act.
All right. So I see. Yeah. Well, he said Dana, but he's a liar. Is there more?
Wait a minute.
Okay.
You said you're creating stories?
Yes.
You're making stuff up? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah. I'll go.
And then he goes on to say,
I can roll it.
No. What I really meant is I need to direct the media to cover a story. That's what I meant about creative stories.
I mean, I think that's, it's very poorly stated if that's what he actually meant about it. But, that's making the rounds for sure.
98% of the media who heard that said, "Oh, you just admitted you're lying and making stuff up because this particular story is a lie and made up." Yeah. So you can't go back and excuse it on the defense that I'm trying to direct media to do stuff because the story itself is a lie and you won't admit it.
It was remarkable.
So he got nailed, and that happened on 3 separate Sunday morning shows that he was on.
He said that again?
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
He went over that. He got hammered every time on it.
All right.
He didn't say I'm making stuff up in the others. He was just trying to defend the lie, which he couldn't do.
And they were saying, I heard you on the other show. You said create stories.
Yeah, exactly. And so, it was just a Sunday disaster. One of the Trumpers said, "Oh, look at this." Who was it? Frank Luntz. JD Vance was on 3 different Sunday shows. Harris was on none of them.
Yeah. Oh, and did you notice?
the response to that is, "Oh, you mean it was 3-0 Harris?"
Yeah.
He did more good for Harris than Harris being on the show.
Thankfully, that's the case.
He was awful.
But it is interesting.
I just wanted I wanted the audience to hear the clip that made it so awful.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty bad. And also, by the way, I'm surprised. Frank, it's Sunday. This is how it works. Republicans go on all 3 shows.
But you have Democrats to appreciate the background to all of this.
All right.
Vance is going on and doing this. This happened before the gun incident.
Right.
Vance is doing this in the morning.
Then they did it.
But there's this poll, and not just any poll.
Oh.
It's a J.N. Seltzer poll of Iowa.
Oh, you love those.
Iowa's not a swing state, but she's a terrific pollster. She was on Morning Joe this morning explaining my poll, my methodology, picks up trends and it picks up basically vibes.
Oh. Okay. I don't know if I trust that.
Let's hear how. To. She basically goes on to say in so many words, I had to do it this way. My polling is different than others because I had to do the Iowa caucuses. Nobody does the Iowa caucuses like me. And that's because I pick up trends and vibes. And that's how you predict what's going to happen with the Iowa caucuses. It turns out it's a good method, and that's why I'm doing it. And so my poll showed that Trump was up 18 the last time we did this against Joe Biden some months back. And now Kamala Harris is only behind by 4. And that's a jaw-dropping, said Jan Seltzer. And I just dug and tried to figure out why. What's going on here? Something is going on in Iowa. And Scarborough and the others who were interviewing her said, well, Texas is only 5 and Florida is only 5. Something's going on in a lot of different places. And Seltzer said, well, what's happening here is, the likely voter screen that we use basically says you have to tell me absolutely, positively, double dog there, secret probation, promise I am voting. That makes you a likely voter. You don't go that far, we don't take you. Because who's going to come out on a, January sub-frigid night in Iowa to do caucuses? You better be committed. So our likely voter is very strict.
Okay.
Very strict screen. And our likely voter screen says those under 40 and women are all of a sudden really energized by the Harris campaign. That's what this poll is telling us, and that's why the numbers changed. I mean, Trump was 50. He's now 47. So he came down a little bit. But the big shift is people who now want to vote for Harris. And basically what this poll does is, first of all, reflects trends that are happening nationally. And secondly, basically reaffirms and validates the idea that vibes matter.
Yeah,
this whole thing about Brat Summer and Kamala and well, you know, you shouldn't do it. But no, it matters, and we're seeing it in the polls. And if you don't get feelings and vibes and touchy feely stuff and the things that you can't exactly measure, well, polls do measure it. They just don't tell you why. But J.N. Seltzer tells you why. So that's why that poll was so significant. And you have Vance on the one hand contributing to it by motivating women voters and anybody who cares about decency, on the one hand. And then you have Seltzer validating it on the other. There was a Byron York tweet I didn't put in the roundup there.
Thank you.
That basically said it's a story he wrote for the Washington Examiner. Republicans have to take the size and energy of these Harris rallies seriously.
Oh, well, they do love to take size and energy of rallies seriously, even though everyone reminds you, well, it's really votes you're looking for here. But yeah, I mean, it's good, I guess, to hear someone like that say that, given that.
But they do mean something.
Yeah,
they tell you about enthusiasm.
Vibes.
They tell you
I was
about
measuring vibes.
Bother to go and get
That's
a sign.
what it was. I didn't know the word for it at the time, but that and giving neighbors permission to do the same. It was a little more important the first time around, I think. But it's important also to hear even Byron York sort of getting this idea, given that the candidate himself is still running around saying all her crowds are AI. I mean, that got planted in his head, and it was a total flop, but no one was able to dislodge that from his head. I've learned it. It's a new trick. I got it. Sorry, it's going in the speech. And he keeps doing it as everyone's rolling their eyes saying, I've actually seen one of these things now, and oh my God, maybe the presidential candidate is crazy. Yeah. Oh, well. Meanwhile, I was reminded in the opening moments of the show by Justice that, by the way, in reality, as Elon Musk is saying, how come nobody ever tries to assassinate Kamala Harris or for that matter, any Democratic politician? No, that already has happened. A guy in Virginia arrested in August for threatening Kamala Harris's life, discovered with a cache of weapons in his home. But, it was more an aspirational thing, perhaps, for him. But, yeah, people are, if you're running for president, someone somewhere is on the radar trying to threaten you. It's just that is happening. And if Elon Musk hasn't noticed because he was too busy doing ketamine with, other billionaires and flying around and launching cars into space, that's kind of his problem. Not mine. All right. Just wanted to set the record straight in case anybody thought, somebody's getting away with being able to actually run for president without having their life threatened. No, that's standard.
So I don't know if we're going to have time to do a lot of this before the break. So let me just hone in on a couple of other, because I want to talk about the economy, but that's going to come after, I think. Well, so this is from the Des Moines Register write-up that J.N. Seltzer did. The nationally recognized Iowa poll's first test of Kamala Harris's strength against Donald Trump indicates she's a more formidable, as I used to say, opponent than President Biden's solid red Iowa. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump leads Democrat Kamala Harris, Donna Bash. In the latest Iowa poll, 47-43, Harris has dramatically improved on Joe Biden's performance. Biden trailed Trump by 18 percentage points. In a June Iowa poll, 80% of Democrats who are likely voters say they are extremely or very enthusiastic about their choice for president compared to 74% of Republicans. Pollster J.N. Seltzer says the poll findings signal a change in the mood of the electorate. That's what she picks up. She calls it mood. I call it vibes. Now, 81% of all Iowans say they will definitely vote in the general election, up from 76. However, some of the demographic groups more likely to favor Harris are showing increased participation. Women show an 8% uptick. Iowans younger than 45 show a 10-point increase. City dwellers show a 6-point bounce. Those with college degrees are up 9 points. So a couple of things about the Seltzer poll. She's the most accurate pollster in America based, like all pollsters, on the last poll before the election.
Okay.
So, for example, Trafalgar or Rasmussen can say, Trump plus 5, Trump plus 3, Trump plus 7, Trump plus 10, and then the last poll is Harris plus 2, and then they're the most accurate.
No, seriously. Okay. Oh, all right, there you go. Oh, they were right on the last one.
Oh, they were right.
They were lying the whole time.
But if you look at historically Seltzer polls in Iowa, talking about Iowa, what happens is that the penultimate, the second to last poll, which this probably was, tends to be a little bit more Democratic, and then you get a little bit of reversion to mean in the last poll. And so Trump tends to win Iowa by 8-9 points when he runs. The 18 was an aberration. The 4 is probably the Democrat-friendly one. And he'll probably win by 8, and their last poll is probably going to say that he's up by 8. So, that's not a surprise, and it doesn't mean that this was all wrong. The mood is still that Democrats are much more energized than they used to be, and that's really what she's picking up on.
Okay. Well,
but that's true everywhere. Does this represent the Midwest? Yeah. But you know what the Iowa poll really represents? More than anything else in the world?
More than Iowa? What?
White people.
Oh, well, yes, right. And I was surprised to hear about the whole thing where she found Iowans younger than 45. There's not a lot of them.
Hey, listen,
in Maine, you have to say 85. They have to do.
We're not talking about Pennsylvania.
No. Okay. Well,
Pennsylvania is an old state.
Oh, okay. Well, Maine is extremely old. Iowa's a pretty old state. But as it happens, children are being born everywhere. It's just one of those
California.
Things. Yeah. All right. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Scott Anderson, the guy that writes the daily summary for this show, Kagro in the Morning. Thank you to everyone that supports this show. Many of you send donations through PayPal, Patreon, Square Cash, Radio Public, and so on. Some of you write your own essays and send them in, or read articles with your own commentary. We appreciate it. Now, some of you are listening to this and thinking, I'd like to help, but isn't there something I could do that wouldn't require money or effort? Why, yes, there is. You can just like us. On Daily Kos, they call it the recommend button. YouTube has a thumbs up. There are hearts and likes and love buttons. Tap our love button. Tap our love button every day. Share our shows and summaries on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube and iTunes, Stitcher and Amazon. Most of these places allow you to write a review, so a sentence or two would be great. Recommend us to social media, or tell your friends to listen to the show. You aren't just helping us, you're helping them find their new favorite thing to listen to. You could change the world. So thank you in advance from me and everybody else in the world.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Networks Radio. We're just having some fun with it. We were just talking a little bit about, first we started talking about how, hey, no one really cares to talk about this assassination attempt anymore. And so then we talked about it. Except we talked about it in the terms of like,
What's he doing on a golf course? I mean, first of
right.
all, he's supposed to be out campaigning. This is a super close election.
Yeah.
In 2016, when it was super close, he was doing 3 rallies a day.
That's
What's he
true.
even doing?
This
golf?
is very low energy.
Oh, by the way, you can't protect the golf course. It's enormous.
Right. Presidents go
somebody
golfing.
Already tried to take a shot at him. So what's he doing there? For those two reasons, he shouldn't be golfing. Of course, if you took golfing away, you'd have to quit the race.
Yeah. Well, he should quit life. There's nothing else for him to do. This is his big passion. But and it's true. Presidents go golfing, but before they owned their own golf courses, like this one guy, they'd go, it was a big deal. You advance, stake out the thing, and they got the dogs are in the woods, and they golf very frequently at like the Army Navy Club. So, it's on a military installation. Yes, they have their own golf course. And, you weren't just going to private clubs out in the, with uncontrolled perimeters. So it's really been a huge risk the whole time. But the better point that you made, Greg, is there's no time left in this election, and it's extremely close. And he's out golfing, and I guess it just depends on what your particular passion is. But it was a huge story when other candidates in the past, Democratic candidates, have post-convention taken a break, a vacation to sort of charge up for the whole sprint toward the election, and they take them to task. What are you doing? You should be out there campaigning like your life depended on it. But Trump golf course, it's a non-story, but the story is his not putting any energy into this race because he hasn't got any. So, and he doesn't care, or he doesn't care what the outcome of the voting is because he's going to try to, deny the results anyway. So what's the point? Why work hard when you can just deny the whole election later?
Well, I call upon all nations to do everything they can to stop these terrorist killers. Now watch this drive.
There was that. But he wasn't running for election. He was simply defending the free world from the threat of global terrorism.
Right. We have work to do. George W. Bush did. He's the one who said that. So golf has played a role in politics for a long time, from Dwight Eisenhower through George W. Bush, play through to Donald Trump.
Can we play through?
Can we play through, please?
Right.
You're taking too long to set your shot up.
Did he clear any brush during his campaigns?
I don't think. I think that's too much athletic activity for him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he seemed to be following the regular campaign schedule when he was running. I don't remember taking time, but Trump, nothing is regular about him, certainly.
Right. So we talked about polls. We talked about the Iowa poll. I guess we should mention, as someone pointed out, that of the last 53 national polls taken.
Oh my goodness! Yes,
Harris has led in 50 of them.
Aha!
And the only ones she hasn't led in, one was McLaughlin, which is a terrible pollster who happens to be Trump's pollster.
Oh.
I forget what the New York Times Siena poll had Trump up by 1. And the third one was one that came out over the weekend, which was the Atlas Intel poll, which is a good poll. It's an outlier. And that particular poll happens to have, I think Trump was up by 4 nationally, or 3, depending on whether, what you were looking at. What's interesting about the Atlas Intel poll, let me just give them to you. ABC Ipsos said Harris 52-46. Notice how often Harris hits 50. Yahoo, Harris 50-46. RMG Research, which is Republican, Harris 51-47. I think RMG is where Rasmussen wound up. That's the R. Data for Progress, Harris 50-46. Again, Harris hitting 50. Morning Consult, Harris 50-45. Leisure, New York Post, Harris 50-47. So she's hitting 50 in all of these except for Atlas Intel. Atlas Intel had Trump 51-48.
Well, wrong.
And so I dug a little bit. I'm not a crosstab diver, but I was curious as to one thing, and I looked at what they had for favorable, unfavorable.
Okay.
And it turns out that in this particular poll, I think that JD Vance, I don't have it in front of me, but I think he was a -14.
Yes.
Which is not surprising.
Right.
Okay. And I think that Harris was like -3.
Mm-hmm.
They had Tim Walz at -15.
I doubt it.
I doubt it too. And when I saw that, I doubted the rest of the poll. I'm just saying, if that's the universe that you're pulling your, polling universe from,
right,
it's not right.
It's the only polled people who are installed vehicles still waiting for him to assist them.
Well, I'm just saying, So, I only polled people who,
that's weird.
Failed his social studies class.
Yeah, I've not seen the negative on him anywhere.
Teacher, lunchroom moderator, and I only polled people who were making trouble in the lunchroom. I don't know who they poll. It's important that you put that. You're supposed to have outliers.
Yeah.
You don't want all the polls like hurting. I did that because they did that. Mm-hmm. Oh, I was going to have Harris up by 6, but I saw everybody has her up by 3, so I'll adjust it right before I put it. You don't want that.
Right.
If somebody has a result that's an outlier, you put it out anyway. That's what honest pollsters do. So I'm fine with Atlas Intel doing that. I just don't believe it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something odd about that. I don't know that there are certainly people out there who aren't going to like him, but I've not seen a negative approval, disapproval poll on him anywhere by a long shot.
Right. YouTube had, I think, a -2. That's the only one, or a -3. That's the only poll that had him in negative. Everybody else usually has him at a positive of some amount.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know about these politics, but everybody likes Coach Walz.
Yeah. Maybe YouTube had a negative too because there was a pre-roll commercial for Harris Walz or something. Anyway, I hate that guy.
So this poll that I'm going to go to is actually not a horse race poll. It's an economic sentiment poll. It's from Financial Times FT Michigan Ross poll.
Okay, I want to team up.
This is the poll that previously had said that Harris leads Trump on economics.
All right.
The economy is the biggest factor in most people's what's the most important to you question. And the headline here, Harris shores up lead over Trump on economy after debate. She consolidated a polling lead over Donald Trump on economic issues, especially among voters who watched the presidential debate. For the second month in a row, the FT Michigan Ross poll shows Harris with a narrow advantage over Trump on stewardship of the economy. 44% of registered voters saying they trusted the Democratic vice president, 42% for Trump. Last month, she led 42 to 41. But Harris fared even better with voters who tuned into Tuesday's presidential debate. That's 67 million people and counting, because there were many, many more who saw parts of it and many more who streamed it, at least another 7,000. So that 67 is closer to 75,000. Who was watched by an estimated 67 million, they say. Of the nearly three-quarters of respondents who said they watched all or part of the 90-minute debate, 48% said they trusted Harris more, compared to 42% for Trump. That's a 6-point lead. Among those who said they didn't watch the debate, Trump had an advantage 41 to 35. So I didn't watch the debate. I don't want information. Leave me alone. I have pencils in my ears, the eraser end. The poll was conducted in the 2 days immediately following last week's debate. And it came just a few days before the Federal Reserve is widely expected to cut U.S. interest rates. So I tell you that this attempted cooking bacon on the barrel of a gun thing that happened,
was an economist,
is not the political winner that the Republicans would like it to be. The most significant political event of the week isn't politics, it's economics, and that's Wednesday at 2 p.m. when the Fed announces what amount of cut they're making, a half a point or a full point, or a quarter of a point.
We will we'll keep an eye on that. We were supposed to be watching the Trump sentencing, but now we're free for watching the Fed on Wednesday.
Right. So the FT write-up says the new polling data suggests Harris may be succeeding in distancing herself from an unpopular incumbent, even without articulating a clear economic agenda that differs from Biden's. While Biden was bedeviled by persistent inflation, the poll showed Harris is trusted more than Trump to lower the cost of everyday necessities like food and fuel by 44 to 43. She's also viewed as more trusted to help the unemployed find a job, 44 to 42. Right. She doesn't have to swamp him on this. She just has to neutralize him, come close to his numbers. She's actually suppressing those numbers, so that is a great sign. Why is this happening, as Rachel Maddow may say? Why is this happening? Why is this happening?
Why would you say this?
Mark Zandi, who is an economist.
Right.
I think he used to be a Moody's economist. Now he's working at a different shop. But
he's happy
very well-known economist says the economy's performance is an increasingly strong tailwind to the presidential election bid of Kamala Harris. That is to say, the wind is behind her, pushing her ahead. Okay. That is what our presidential election model is saying. You might recall the model explains, or you may not recall.
I'm sorry, I do not recall. I simply
The model explains the share of the vote that goes to the incumbent party by state. It includes a number of political variables like voter turnout and third-party candidates and economic variables. Voters say their number one issue is the economy. So this is his version of 13 keys. The most important economic variable in the model is the cost of a gallon of regular unleaded gasoline. Anything less than $3.50 per gallon favors Harris. Anything over that favors Trump. According to AAA, the nationwide average is currently $3.20. I have an update on that. It's even lower. Fixed mortgage rates also matter a lot. Anything below 6.5% favors Harris in his model. And anything over favors Trump, according to Mortgage Daily News, which, of course, you subscribe to and read religiously every morning.
Yes.
Daily even.
Right, for 30 years.
The fixed rate is 6.14. That's below the 6.5. And falling. That's good for Harris. Real after-inflation household income growth is also key to the election, with wages rising faster than inflation in all of the swing states. This, too, favors Harris. While the election model suggests the election will be very close because of the steady stream of good economic news, it's become less close. Harris is expected to win 286 electoral votes by his model by winning the swing states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, according to his model. She needs 270 to win. Of course, there's plenty of economic script still to be written, but at this point the script decidedly favors Harris. Our friend Patrick DeHaan, also known as the GasBuddy guy.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Let me just read you a couple of tweets in a row. I took a screenshot so you can get them all in. 7 straight weeks, U.S. gas prices have fallen, currently 3.15. According to GasBuddy, Americans will spend about $1.83 billion less on gas this week than last year.
Oh, good. I need that money.
18 states with sub-$3 gas: Texas, Tennessee, Mississippi, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Alabama, Louisiana, Arkansas, Kentucky, North Carolina.
Man, all right, that one.
Ohio, Missouri, Kansas, Georgia, Wisconsin, Iowa.
Okay.
Nebraska.
I mean, they're all happy about it. It is interesting. Yeah, the first part of the list is people that won't care that their gas prices are lower. They'll still blame Harris for high gas prices. Right. And then a few in Waukesha County, maybe they'll give it some
you drive a diesel pickup?
Yeah.
1,000-day low. The national average price of diesel is at its lowest since 2021 at $3.57 a gallon. Today is the last day summer gasoline is required for a majority of the nation. Winter gasoline can be sold starting tomorrow. Winter gasoline is cheaper.
Winter gasoline is coming.
GasBuddy, because you don't have to have these additives.
Right.
GasBuddy now counts over 65,000 stations in the United States with gas prices below $3 a gallon. $3 a gallon is coming.
All right.
So if that's the single most important thing, then you understand why Harris is doing better on the economy in polling.
Yeah, they have to go around and get any of those last remaining "I did that" stickers off.
Right.
Hurry. Okay.
So I think that that's a big deal. Here's another big deal. Ronald Reagan's former staff backs Harris Wall's ticket. 17 former staff members of the late Republican President Ronald Reagan are endorsing the Democratic nominee, Vice President Kamala Harris.
From their retirement homes?
Francisco Franco is still dead. In a joint statement first obtained by CBS News, the staff members wrote that Reagan, if alive, would have supported Harris.
All right.
They also wrote that if Reagan, if alive, would no longer be dead.
Yeah, well, a number of problems with that model.
Reagan joke.
I mean, well, also, by the way, I mean, one of the favorite Republican refrains is that Martin Luther King, if alive, would have supported them, but I doubt that that's the case. And had Reagan been alive during his presidency, it might have gone better.
Yeah, exactly. It might have gone better with Iran-Contra. Over 230 former officials for Republican Presidents George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush have also backed Harris, but not George W. Bush, who's out there watching his drive and painting about it. In addition to campaign staffers, and by the way, if you ever thought that George W. Bush was a complete weasel,
yeah, sure,
your opinion is validated by his non-support for Harris. Yes. Well, I don't do politics anymore. Well, F you.
Yeah, nobody doesn't do politics anymore.
Are you a patriot or are you not a patriot? You care about the country or you don't care about the country? I don't really care about what you did in 2003 anymore. You're off the political scene. But good God, get off the couch.
I don't know.
What are you, JD Vance? Come on, tell us what's going on here.
Yeah, I'm not certain why he thinks that's a winner. And I mean, what is he, if he doesn't do politics anymore, I mean, well, that's not true. But if it was the case, well, then what are you afraid of? Because, you're not going to miss out on any support. You're not running for anything. Tell us who you're voting for.
Maybe Cheney needs to have a word with you. Anyway,
he used to run
there are campaign staffers for Republican presidential nominees John McCain and Mitt Romney, Biden received a similar amount of GOP support in his 2020 run against Trump, and I will remind you, he won.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right. And it doesn't mention, but also family of John McCain supporting Harris.
That's mostly true. Has Megan come around? Does she still?
No, she hates Trump and says she hates Trump, but she says, I'm a conservative Republican and I can't vote for Harris, but I will never vote for Trump. We don't know what the mom will do.
Yeah, she could be doing anything. And the fact that she's quiet suggests to me maybe she is.
I know how she's going to vote. I just don't know what she's going to say publicly.
Yeah. The fact that she's been quiet and reserved about it, I think she's reserving the right to vote for Harris in the end and just doesn't want to make waves.
Did you pick up on Marjorie Taylor Greene and the ABC whistleblower?
Yes. I haven't spoken about it yet, but I'll preface it by saying Marjorie Taylor Greene is crazy. What else?
So let me just read you from the tweet. Marjorie Taylor Greene says, the ABC whistleblower who claimed Kamala Harris was given debate questions ahead of the debate, because that was a thing that was going on
always say
Twitter.
That. Yes.
Has died in a car crash, according to news reports.
Yeah. All right.
So we can't verify it because
Seth Rich killed him.
Exactly.
Yeah, they love doing that. By the way, she has finally come around to say, oh, I heard that was also untrue. But the whole thing is untrue.
Well, what I wanted to add here, in this post, where I just read from Marjorie Taylor Greene, the next statement is readers added context, because you're allowed to do community posts. And the next line from the community is Representative Greene acknowledged in a later tweet this is false, but has not taken down this post.
Yeah.
Therefore, you could read my community comment right here because she didn't take it down.
Right. I mean, there is that. That's a huge problem. She's really looking for a way to muscle her way back into the picture.
The space that Laura Loomer has taken.
Yes, and she's got a tremendous fight and rivalry going on with Laura Loomer. Laura Loomer tragically winning that fight, but only tragically because no one can stand Laura Loomer any more than Marjorie Taylor Greene, but the fact that they're fighting with one another is pretty good. People should be throwing knives into the ring at this point. By the way, best comment I've seen so far on that dumb conspiracy theory, which was included, by the way, that Kamala Harris's expensive earrings had listening devices in them.
Tiffany's, for those of you who didn't know.
Right. It's expensive. More expensive than a ham sandwich.
A woman running for president who dresses for the part?
Yeah, really. Anyway, they're expensive as everyday items go, but as Tiffany items go, apparently not.
How could she waste that money on earrings? Do you know how many rounds of ammunition that would buy, let alone how much bacon?
Should have been wearing those bullets on your ears instead, like Trump. But anyway, first of all, your face is going to be on national television in close up. You're going to select your earrings. The other guy paints his face for this, so I don't see why you can't wear a pair of earrings. But the theory was, well, they're not earrings, they're listening devices, and people were whispering the questions ahead of time and then the answers as she was speaking to her, which, is a dumb, crazy theory anyway. But Kevin Cruz pointing out the Marjorie Taylor Greene version of it was that she got the questions in advance and so therefore could prepare better than Trump. And Cruz pointing out, I love that the conspiracy theory here is that Kamala Harris was given the questions in advance so that she wasn't surprised when they went crazy with wild cards like, let's discuss your economic plans and what's your plan for the border. Everybody needed those questions in advance. There were no surprise questions. What would you do? So, of course, they had to go kill the guy in a car crash. Right.
Well, yeah.
Yes. Mm-hmm. You've gotten better, Marjorie. You're no longer a conspiracy theorist wackadoo.
Yeah, we're going to lower your meds.
Right. You're on the mend. All right. Well.
So the things that I want to finish off with, I think, are firstly, as Kyle Cheney points out, Trump has a new youth strategy. Get out the vote.
Yeah.
You should click on that tweet that I sent you.
All right. Is it, okay. Okay.
Bottom of screen.
Bottom of screen. Okay. Just it's a big X.
Yep.
All right. And, Youth strategy. I hate Taylor Swift.
That's it.
That did it.
That did it. Okay. So, so much you can make out of that if you're an analyst.
Yeah.
He doesn't say, I hate Taylor Swift's choice of who to support. He doesn't say, I hate Taylor Swift's music.
Right.
He says, I hate Taylor Swift.
Yeah, grr, me mad.
He doesn't say, Taylor Swift hates me. This is all about him.
Yeah.
Totally me-focused. It's phenomenal that he would post such a thing.
Yeah,
and when you figure out why he would post such a thing, this really insightful, that is SIGHT.
Oh, yes, right.
Insightful article.
You were talking about his tweeting. It could be the other one.
Yeah, from Josh Marshall about the two campaigns. Trump has two campaigns, and sometimes they're in parallel, sometimes they're in opposition. Campaign number one, the real campaign, is Donald Trump, and you could see it in that tweet, I hate Taylor Swift. That is pure Trump. That's him.
Someone had to write that one for him? Okay.
Then you have what Josh Marshall calls, in the scare quotes, Trump campaign, which is really Chris LaCivita and Susie Wiles. Mm-hmm. And basically what they do is they organize the ad buys and do cleanup in aisle 4. And they spend most of their time trying to clean up what Trump did and try to make it, more presentable.
Okay.
And the two campaigns are mom and dad are going to get a divorce, but we're staying together for the sake of the kids, at least for now, until after the election. But we each have our own separate lives, and we don't really see each other anymore. And that's what this is. He's
a pretty good description.
Right. When you look at it, you go, okay, I get it. I understand what's going on here. LaCivita and Wiles, who are overrated, as most campaign, mavens are, especially if you win. If you lose, you get the recognition you deserve. But when you win, you become mythically smart.
Yes.
Like James Carville.
Right. Still thinks it's, still dining out on that. Everyone likes the economy stupid one. Well, it still is
the
economy
stupid. He was right about that.
Yeah. But I mean, all right. Yes. So now how do you win? Oh,
but he's wrong about
do
everything else because, if you're not like an 80-year-old old fart like he is, then he doesn't know who you are. Like, what's this Brad Summer stuff? I don't get it.
Yeah, not really insightful.
What do you mean, social media?
To say, you should have a good economy if you want to win. All right, thanks. I'll just go get one.
Right. So what Josh Marshall writes is, first is Donald Trump, the guy we saw in the debate, the guy we see at the rallies. The guy Trump is mostly on social media. Like, people like Dan Scavino tweet for him sometimes, but even then it's like an impersonation of feral Trump because this is Trump.
Yeah.
And this persona was really the entirety of the campaign in 2016 because there wasn't any campaign infrastructure.
Yeah.
The campaign this time is mostly about Trump's anger and grievances, like I hate Taylor Swift.
Grr. Yes.
And shows all the signs not only of his longstanding degeneracy, but his cognitive and personal decline over the last decade. Let's call it the Trump campaign. But then there's an entirely distinct and relatively traditional campaign being run by LaCivita and Wiles. That campaign wants to talk about inflation and the southern border. That campaign is running a vast and complex TV air war. Let's call this, in quotes, the Trump campaign.
Yeah.
Obviously, the operations are related. The folks running the, in quotes, Trump campaign want him to be president. They know what he's like. He's singular, final battle line focus on the southern border is what he shoved into the center of American politics back in 2015. So they're doing that. But for the Trump campaign, in quotes, these issues are the two big winners, inflation and immigrants. And it turns out inflation not so much anymore, as we pointed out with Zandy and Financial Times. Right. That's not a winner. So all he's got is immigrants. And because all he got is immigrants, that's why JD Vance keeps getting sent to the Sunday shows to talk about cats and dogs.
Yeah.
Living and together. Not in the Bill Murray way. Cats and dogs living together. They're talking about, eating cats and dogs. It's a loser, but that's all they have.
Yeah.
And they want to talk about that because otherwise you might ask him about abortion and IVF and things that they don't want to talk about.
Well, he'll say something equally bad about that. Yeah, he's way off base. And I'm sure, the Trump campaign, in quotes, really wants anything but Donald Trump speaking at this point. Right. They want a script.
So Marshall goes on to say, you and I live in the national media conversation where Trump himself is the dominant story, but in the swing states, it's all about LaCivita and Wiles and what they're trying to do to try to win it. Mailers and advertising and that sort of stuff. Part of the problem, of course, you didn't write about this, but I'll tell you because it's a known thing, that by firing Romney McDaniel, they fired the ground game, and they don't have one now.
They don't need it.
So that's a problem. They're trying to direct voters to mail in and register and all that sort. I mean, that's the traditional campaign parts, and that's where they're parked, in the swing states, while Donald Trump and JD Vance go on and just make national news. And Marshall writes, when I speak to people running things in the swing states, this is their worry, that the Trump campaign, in quotes, may simply bury Harris in 30-second ads.
I see.
Mind you, I'm not saying they think it's going to happen. That's their worry. And it's not like the Harris campaign doesn't have money of their own to run 30-second ads. But that's where the threat is. So it seemed to me for a while there's something increasingly like an arranged marriage. They can't control each other. They both live in their own lives, and that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Right? So I say this not to cue up any big punchline or revelation. I just think it's the best way to understand what's going on here. Of course, they can't truly remain separate. The swing states are not hermetically sealed from the rest of the country or the national political discourse, so you can't prevent Pennsylvania from hearing about the fact that J.D. Vance is a nutcase. Just how much of these two campaigns interact, get in the way of each other, or keep their own assignments on trouble will likely play a big role in the outcome of the election. I think he has a point.
Yes. 2. As it turns out. So, I mean, it's true. I like the description. I think most people can kind of understand the idea of, they're technically still together, but they live separate lives, which, by the way, is happening also right in front of everybody's face as Trump, when he does travel to do things and not just spend the day playing golf, travels with Laura Loomer, and Melania is, I don't know where. I haven't seen her in a long time. Don't care to.
She's in New York. Barron's attending NYU. And she's in New York.
Okay. Well, that's where she should be. If he's in NYU, that makes some sense. I know it's hard work getting a kid through their first year of college. Be nearby. That's nice. In the meantime, he's got Laura Loomer to fly around with, and she's worrying all of the lascivitous and wiles of the campaign. Very worried about her seizing control of his personal phone, and I guess probably tweeting for him, or at least, I don't know, doing things that make him look terrible, which is fine by me. All right, how about we do this again Wednesday?
Okay.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio, I think, anyway, because as it turns out, it sounds like the second break was a little hinky, I guess. Scott says we were still on the air, just our regular mid-break conversation, like, okay, hey, I'll see you again on Wednesday. Oh, by the way, have you heard about this, that, or the other thing? And then the break came on, and then, okay, well, the break might have been off a little bit, and I wondered whether that maybe affected our return from the break. But by now, we're certainly back on. Hello, everybody. How are you? And time to catch up on the other stories circulating and things that I've put away from the weekend via Pocket, and then maybe skimming around and trying to find the things that I forgot to put away. I think I have a couple of things, though, in email that I should go back into and discuss. Let's say, first of all, I'm in reverse chronological order. Word via Patreon messaging, because our messenger here, Michael Mayholtz, is not on social media, but wanted to throw an idea out here, and I guess so. It's up to us to spread it if we think it's a good one. But it does mention Taylor Swift and Elon Musk. What's going on here? I wanted to see. Let me click all the way through in case there's more to the message here than is included here in the email. Where were we here? I want to see Taylor Swift and Elon Musk discussion of carbon footprints and private flights. Oh, okay, interesting. I know a lot of people have been very critical about, super wealthy people in their private planes. Apparently, it's a terrible thing for the environment, generally speaking. I imagine it's a drop in the bucket for each one of them, but collectively, it's certainly not a great idea. So everybody could be doing their best to cut down on carbon footprints. Elon Musk is not going to anytime soon, which is remarkable because the original story of him getting into Tesla was that he was going to do this tremendous thing for carbon footprint. And I guess there's probably more effective, spreading the, you have to say, right? He's probably doing much more for the environment by spreading the popularity of electric vehicles. And he's probably not getting anywhere close to eating all of that up with his own private jet travel, but only because, millions of people have adopted the electric car format. Not all of them in Teslas either, but he certainly was the popularizer of new electric, the electrification of the vehicles. Anyway, Taylor Swift, on the other hand, she's got concert dates all over the world. And, of course, there was the small controversy of her flying back from a concert in Japan to catch the Super Bowl last time. Anyway, so let's see. The idea that's being floated here is I think Taylor could move her tour to electric semi-trucks. Oh, I guess, and train transport. Maybe. I don't know. There's certainly electric trucks. They're working on it, but I don't know how close we are to being able to haul 18-wheelers on electric engines. But people who actually pay attention to such things, and maybe, Michael, you're one of them, could tell us a little bit more about that possibility. Elon attacking Taylor will just get more people to vote Dem. Okay, so I guess he's on track for that one. So what are we floating here? The idea of electrification of the trucking fleet, and then the promotion of train transport. I don't know how feasible that is for something that has to move so quickly to so many different places and so many arenas and can't really wait for scheduled train service necessarily. But electric semi-trucks would work. I don't know. I'd love to hear more about whether or not that's a realistic possibility. But I just don't know. But I thought I would float that for you, Michael, just because you asked, and because you're a longtime supporter of the show, as it turns out. That also, by the way, gets me to calling out other new supporters of the show, including a new Patreon supporter. Now, this one's trouble. I'm going to take a wild guess at the pronunciation of the name. It's not that wild a guess, but I get. And Larry, you know it's coming. But Larry Fennis, have I got the pronunciation right? Gosh, I hope so. So, I mean, you've probably heard it all at this point. And at any rate, Larry Fennis, a new supporter of the show, and very recently a YouTube subscriber as well. I see in my search in my email mentioned twice. So thank you very much. Welcome aboard. Speaking of other supporters who sometimes drop us messages, I am behind on my Jeremy Freiberger updates. And I think I saved my spot in the email chain, the growing email chain, correctly. We're going on 12 days old now since he sent us this thing. But he did point out that, let's see, started out with, I guess, references to recent shows will be a little bit dated at this point. But thanks for clarifying the DNC's role during Tuesday's show. That now going on about, well, I guess almost 2 weeks ago. I sense that most Americans don't understand that the DNC is almost entirely about supporting the Democratic Party's presidential nominee. We run into that from time to time, that people get angry about a Democratic position on a particular issue, and they say, I'm going to boycott giving money to the Democratic National Committee until President Biden changes his tune or whatever. And they're not really a policy shop, the DNC, but you get closer to policy in speaking to the DCCC and the DSCC. But at any rate, that is the case. DNC is almost exclusively about support once every 4 years for the presidential race and for running the convention. Anyway, meanwhile, he wanted to move on to the next state in the lineup, that being Wisconsin at that point. And let's see, alphabetically speaking, Wisconsin was the last state in the 6-state series looking at closely divided legislatures. You remember the theme of Jeremy's writing on this? Yet remember, he says, that I've remarked several times that Wisconsin is the oddball in this group. It does not have a closely divided state legislature. It isn't even close. That's because of all the gerrymandering that's been going on. Why include it? Well, we'll get to that. In fact, as recently as the 2022 midterm elections, Wisconsin Dems were doing everything possible just to avoid a veto-proof Republican supermajority in both chambers. So why is Wisconsin on the list? The explanation requires a bit of background. Some of you may already be familiar with, others new to this. Despite near Republican supermajorities in the state legislature, Wisconsin is actually a closely divided state, if you actually count it in terms of how are people voting in this state, with a slight Democratic lean, in fact. How can I say this? Well, I didn't. It was Jeremy saying it, but he says it because a Democrat has been Secretary of State, a statewide election position since forever. Democratic United States Senator Tammy Baldwin, a member of the LGBTQ community, elected in 2012, 16, and 20, and looks to keep her job this year. Josh, is it Kaul, K-A-U-L? Oh, I think we've run into this a couple times. Another Democrat has been Wisconsin's Attorney General since first elected in 2018. The governor is, of course, Tony Evers, also a Democrat. Ousted two-term incumbent autocrat / Republican Scott Walker in 2018. He too busy, I guess, remarking on the flavor of his ham sandwiches and talking about getting haircuts. Too boring for everybody. But there you go. Statewide, a Democratic Senator, Tammy Baldwin, a Democratic Attorney General, Democratic Secretary of State, now a Democratic Governor, and yet supermajority and almost veto-proof majority thanks to the gerrymandering in the state legislature. So then, despite the Wisconsin GOP pulling every dirty trick in the book for 4 straight years, Badger State voters re-elected Evers in 2022. Finally, liberal Judge Jill Karofsky booted a conservative justice from the state Supreme Court, that too obviously a statewide election, in 2020, followed onto the bench by now Justice Janet Protasewicz in early 2023. Thus, the fact that Wisconsin has chosen all of these statewide Democrats proves that a majority of the state's voters has preferred Democrats. So, what's with those lopsided Republican majorities in the state legislature? Only the nation's most egregious gerrymandering. However, Jill Karofsky's 2020 arrival on the state Supreme Court cut conservatives' lock from 5-2 to 4-3. Protasewicz in 2023 then flipped the court 4-3 for the liberals, and then, wouldn't you know it, election maps have been redrawn. Although the new maps don't go as far as necessary to fully undo Republicans' outrageous 10-year self-selection, the playing field is significantly leveled, and whereas no one knows yet how this will shift the 2024 outcome for Wisconsin's legislature, it's probably safe to say that Dems aren't fighting to fend off the possibility of GOP veto-proof majorities. Plus, with a bit of help from all of us, the march toward regaining Democratic control in Wisconsin can continue. So please do support Democratic Wisconsin Assembly, that is the House, candidates. Where? AssemblyDemocrats.com. How do you support Democratic Wisconsin Senate candidates? Well, I'll tell you. WI, that's their postal abbreviation, Wisconsin, WI, SenateDems.com. Not terribly difficult to remember. AssemblyDemocrats.com. Could be anyone's assembly, happens to be Wisconsin's, though. Or WI, Wisconsin, SenateDems.com. Finally, Wisconsin has 2 Dem House candidates on DCCC's, not the DNC, DCCC, Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee's red to blue slate. Rebecca Cook, hoping to replace J6 participant, as Donald Trump would call him, J6, January 6 participant, and all-around repugnant gopper, Derek Van Orden. I don't think I even know who the hell that is, but unfortunately he's drawing a federal salary. Get rid of him. While Peter Barca is up against incumbent Brian, is it Steele? S-T-E-I-L? I don't know how he pronounces that one. I know somebody with the same spelling that says style. So whatever it is, make him unemployed. And replace him with the much easier to pronounce Peter Barca, I guess. Cook and Barca can be researched and supported, of course, because they are red to blue candidates at redtoblue.dccc.org. And that's it for the 6 states. Finally, we got around to the finish of the 6 states in the roundup of closely divided state legislatures, except for the one that wasn't closely divided, but should be. I hope it's been interesting and informative. I think so. Meanwhile, Jeremy says he'll send one final synopsis with respect to state legislatures, and this one will make a very specific case for sending some amount of support to the DLCC, Democratic Legislative Campaign Committee. That's the one that actually, if you're interested in fighting this fight down ballot and fighting for control of state legislatures, DLCC is the national organization through which you could and should be doing this work. Okay. We'll mark the rest of the chain unread from there. And somewhere in here, there was another correction that needed to make the record, and I think it was, let's see. Oh, look, another new supporter that I had missed up until now, and I'll have to make a note. But welcome to new Patreon supporter Tim Porter. Tim Porter making it easy for me to announce the name. Everyone should adopt either names that are simple and easy for foolish me to be able to pronounce, or fake names, or send pronunciation guides, if you like. I don't know, but it's always an adventure, and only because I want to be nice and recognize people for their support, which makes it all possible here, and I don't want to upset anyone by saying their name wrong. That's all I'm trying to do, is recognize you and welcome you. So hopefully we don't, step on any toes doing this. Now, somewhere back here, there we are, was David Paquette's correction for me. Do you remember when, a couple of days ago, I was commenting on, as everyone then spent the week doing, commenting on Donald Trump's horrific answers to the Economic Club of New York about his dumb tariff ideas. And his hope is that everyone comes away with the idea that he's going to be tough on China, as he says, and that his intention is to impose these tremendous tariffs on China. And in his view, that means China will be paying down our national debt. And I said at the time, well, is that troublesome, or should we tell them what's going on? Because doesn't China hold a tremendous chunk of our federal debt? And apparently that's like, what should we say? I mean, I think it's sexist, I guess, now to say old wives' tale, even though that's an idiom, but an old spouse's tale, I guess we can turn it to. But it certainly is, well, the argument here is that it hasn't been correct maybe forever, or at least not for a long time. He says, I was listening to KITM and I heard you reference a huge portion of U.S. debt being in Chinese hands. If you think that, isn't this bad news? Ready for this? If you think that and weren't just being sarcastic, you will be glad to know that nothing could be further from the truth. I think your brain got infected by the GOP debt hysteria worm. This is definitely something I think I can freely acknowledge that this is something that I think Republican types always used to say, and I guess it was supposed to be scaremongering, not just, oh my God, look at the size of the federal debt, but oh no, the Chinese own it all. Don't worry though, David says, there's a cure. RFK Jr. recovered from his sort of brainworm, and so can you. For your convenience, I am pasting a summary chart below, and that always sounds good, but the full detail is here at the, now this is what's got me a little bit worried, the Peter G. Peterson Foundation website. Do we trust that now? Did we have a problem with that before? He was always kind of a weird, he wasn't like viciously partisan pro-Republican, but he was definitely a deficit hawk, debt hawk, kind of a, kick, what was it? Did he organize and pay for, the can kicks back kind of thing, where they were trying to popularize the idea of deficit peacockism among college students or whatever. My recollection is that Pete Peterson wasn't like necessarily the most trustworthy guy on it, but I don't believe he's fabricating statistics like who holds federal debt. I mean, I think it's pretty straightforward stuff. Anyway, it says here at a very high level of about $34 trillion in total U.S. debt, 186 billion, 34 trillion, is that right? I feel like that should be 3.4 trillion, but I don't know. I don't even know if I know those numbers offhand anymore. I'm just not somebody who's paid a great deal of attention to that issue as a problem. But at any rate, the mention here is $816 billion, or about 2.4% of the debt held by China. The largest single chunk of it, 15.4%, being held by the Federal Reserve, which makes a great deal of sense, really. Here's what the chart says. 2/3 of public debt is held by domestic holders. The composition of the debt held by the public in billions of dollars. The Federal Reserve holding, I guess this would be in billions of dollars, 5,239 billion. So that's, I guess we're up to trillions there, right? Mutual funds holding 3.6 trillion of it, is that right? Depository institutions 1.6, state and local governments 1.6, pension funds with just over a trillion, other domestic holders in total 5.7, the largest holder, other, that doesn't tell us very much. Insurance companies, but as far as foreign holders of debt go, there's a combination of 30 plus other countries in the world that total hold 3.9 trillion. Japan outpacing China in that, with the biggest single countries internationally: Japan, China, UK, Luxembourg, punching above their weight, Canada, Cayman Islands, and Belgium. So some very small countries holding a significant portion, and I think probably because of their banking laws, just like the Cayman Islands. But, all right, so it is alleged that the idea that the Chinese hold some really tremendous portion of the federal debt is outdated at best, and maybe was never true at worst, in which case, some weird things slip through. I don't know. People repeat them enough, and it's like, I don't know, these guys seem to care about the federal debt. I thought that maybe they were telling us accurate information about it, but I guess not. I just figured that their passion for it meant that they had done some reading, but it may also have meant that they were just doing some lying, just creating stories in order to get the media's attention out there, So that seems fairly important. I'm glad we got around to correcting that, and I think that's it from the mailbag. Now we can turn back to what got put away via Pocket. I don't know. There's really nothing else to say about the assassination attempt against maybe sort of Donald Trump or his golfing partners. We don't know. Or possibly, Canada geese on the golf course. That's a big obsession for people, especially put that together with gun ownership down in Florida, and you don't know what's going on. Maybe it was just someone trying to, cook and eat a goose. Let's see. Other interesting... here, this I thought was interesting, actually, over the weekend, just because it was a mirror image, in my view, of what had happened with the now not all that recent rioting in the UK, where, once again, rumors of criminal activity by migrant communities was whipped up by the right-wing online faction in the UK and encouraged and flames fanned by Nigel Farage, now from and ensconced in a seat in Parliament and able to do this, and whipping up a frenzy and into violence that exploded into riots in the Merseyside area of the UK. And then about a week into those riots, also based on false rumors and fanning those flames among the right wing. The original posters of this bad information were identified, at which point the original posters of these terrible rumors said, hey, I thought, I heard it from a friend or from a friend of a friend or the friend of a cousin of a friend, and I trusted it and I shouldn't have, and I certainly didn't mean for it to blow up into this. And I don't know, I think we may even have shared that story on the air at some point. And now we have the same thing with the Springfield rumors, which of course immediately makes me think, I don't know, it's weird that they resort to the same playbook for backing out of this, but certainly the parallels are obvious here. It hasn't yet erupted into rioting, but it has erupted into bomb threats and swatting of now including local elementary schools, government buildings, court buildings, now also includes nearby hospitals and universities as well. Universities in the area have been conducting their classes virtually. Remember when that was a terrible thing and we didn't want that to happen because of COVID, but it's okay if it happens because of great patriots phoning in bomb threats or something like that. Anyway, this NBC News story tells the same background essentially as what happened in the UK. It just exploded, it says in scare quotes here. What did? Well, this is the story of the Springfield woman who claims that she never meant to spark false rumors about Haitians, except in posting false rumors about Haitians, I guess. The woman behind an early Facebook post that helped spark baseless rumors about Haitians eating pets told NBC News that she feels for the immigrant community. Well, it's a little too late now, but Alicia Victoria Lozano, the reporter for NBC News who filed this piece, the woman behind an early Facebook post spreading a harmful and baseless claim about Haitian immigrants eating local pets that helped thrust the small Ohio city into the national spotlight, says she has no first-hand knowledge of any such incident. It was obvious since she was only providing fourth-hand information in the beginning anyway, and is now filled with regret and fear as a result of the ensuing fallout. It just exploded into something I didn't mean to happen. Erica Lee, with a K, in case you want to look her up. Erica Lee, there's no K in Lee, obviously, a Springfield resident, told NBC News on Friday. Lee recently posted on Facebook about a neighbor's cat that went missing, adding that the neighbor told Lee that she thought the cat was the victim of an attack by her Haitian neighbors. And even in that telling of the story, I mean, an attack, they weren't like trying to beat up the cat or even murder the cat. They were the rumor was that they were going to eat the cat. I don't know if that's really an attack on it. I mean, do we say that people go into the woods and attack deer? I mean, they do, but for some reason we don't describe nor do we describe their penchant for venison as an interest in eating bush meat, as we do when we're trying to blame others around the world for, say, the spread of COVID. But it is bush meat. But I don't know. No one ever says that they went and attacked a deer. But anyway, that whole setup was stupid anyway. And by the way, this piece is illustrated with a clip of JD Vance on Meet the Press, the NBC's Sunday show. And as much as this clip that Greg shared with us, by the way, of Dana Bash questioning and pressing J.D. Vance on this stuff, she had a brutal, fact check. It's not brutal. They sit there like stoics and say, but you said something that isn't true. And then J.D. Vance screams for 5 minutes about how it was right for him to say it anyway. But, and she pushes back a little bit. But how about throw him right the F off the show? Why is he on all three? I mean, my comment on the thing was, she pushes back, I guess. But look, enablers are going to enable. Why would you book this guy on all three shows? And by the way, when he says, admittedly, he misstates what he's trying to say here. I mean, if I really wanted to look at this in a charitable light, I would say, well, he's made a terrible syntax error here by saying that if I have to create stories, well, what he really means is if I have to whip up media interest in a story that I think is a real story, then I will. But, he unfortunately says create stories, and it only makes things worse for them. Why don't they just cut him from the other two shows? We were going to have JD Vance, but forget it. That guy's a liar. We're going to have somebody else instead. Anyway, I just found that interesting that they would choose to illustrate this whole thing with what? A video, not of of Erica Lee saying, I'm really, really sorry. I somehow just magically did exactly what they did in the UK, and golly, I can't understand how it blew up into something. They don't even get that video, but here's more video of JD Vance lying about it. And I know they're doing it in the context of he's doubling down on false claims, but look, he's there just making that false claim, and people are going to carry that forward. I don't know if they're going to read the headline on this thing. Anyway, I do want to come back to this after the break so we can hear more about how closely they followed the UK playbook on this. Make of that what you will. Hi everybody, it's me, David Waldman. Yes, the same guy who interrupts you all the time. Interrupting you one more time just to tell you again, another reminder that your contributions are what keep this show on the air, and patreon.com, patreon.com, is still among the easiest ways to make the sustaining subscription donations that keep us afloat. Are you ready for the pep talk about how our Patreon campaign is still going strong and growing? Well, too bad. Yeah, the plain fact is we actually are headed in the wrong direction, and whereas we once had about 175 monthly patrons, we're now actually down below 150. Time to recruit some more. Not exactly the kind of news I wanted to share, but there it is. For those of you in a position to support the show, patreon.com does make it easy to make those secure, recurring monthly contributions to do so. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. We've been through a lot together. The worst of the pandemic, we hope. The worst of the insurrection, we hope. So go ahead and treat yourself. You don't need an excuse. Give yourself the gift of a little something you enjoy in life. Support the show. And of course, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running on those options too. So thanks again, everyone, for all your support. We couldn't, or at least shouldn't, do it without you. Hope you'll be on board soon too. Thanks for all your support. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We'll continue with this reading, but first, one more interruption. I just happened to see what I thought was a good turn of phrase here from Kashana on Blue Sky. It's Kashana Cawley, who is a TV writer, among other things. So it's got some novels out on the market as well. A famous and well-regarded writer with plenty of followers on Blue Sky because she says smart things like playing off of this Blue Sky post from Phil Lewis, of course, of the HuffPost, and mentioning that Springfield, Ohio city officials, this is related to the story we're going to read, have announced the cancellation of an annual celebration of diversity, arts, and culture, of course, due to safety concerns, due to numerous threats against Culture Fest there in Springfield. And Kashana puts it quite correctly here. I know we're supposed to be jaded and all, but I'm disgusted that one of our major political parties is running on nice town you got here. It'd be a shame if you tried to have events, and that is or a school year for that matter, or run a hospital. But that is essentially what's happening here. If you want us to stop, you're going to have to vote for us. But in the meantime, just terrorism until now through the election. Okay. It was well put. So now back to this story about the story. Well, where did this dumb stuff come from in Springfield? Erica Lee, it says again, remember, recently posted on Facebook about a neighbor's cat that went missing, adding that the neighbor told Lee that she thought the cat was the victim of an attack by her Haitian neighbors. NewsGuard, a media watchdog that monitors for misinformation online, found that Lee had been among the first people to publish a post to social media about the rumor, screenshots of which circulated online. The neighbor, Kimberly Newton, said she heard about the attack from a third party, NewsGuard reported. Okay, so this is Lee posted about the neighbor's cat that went missing, right? But the neighbor says, oh, I didn't even hear about this until some other third party told me about it. Now, how did that come to be, how you found out about your cat? I don't know. Reasons. And, of course, Philip Bump, among others, commenting just on social media. I don't know if he wrote any articles about it or included in any of his articles, but just the whole idea of, yeah, I saw my own cat had been taken by these neighbors and was hanging from a tree being skinned and carved up. And I didn't say anything or call the police. But I did go to Facebook. Or I went home and told a neighbor, and my neighbor anonymously posted on Facebook, and then my other neighbor heard from that neighbor about the cat thing. But, you know, it seems to me like something you'd be talking about. Or speaking to the police about it, at a minimum. Or if you're brave, you march into the backyard and say, that's my cat, what are you doing? But no, I don't have anything to say. I just go home and post on Facebook. That seems odd to me. Newton, that's the neighbor of Lee. Newton told NewsGuard that Lee's Facebook post misstated her story. What do you know? And that the owner of the missing cat was in fact an acquaintance of a friend rather than her daughter's friend. Newton could not be reached for comment. So again, here we're like fifth hand on this stuff. It's total garbage. Now we're down to, well, it's an acquaintance of a friend. Not even a friend of a friend. An acquaintance of a friend of mine is the owner of the missing cat. That says Newton. So it's not Newton's cat. It's not her friend's. That's not Newton's friend's cat. It's the cat of an acquaintance of a friend of Newton, who is the neighbor of Lee, who posted the Facebook story. They're definitely eating cats because a neighbor of mine has an acquaintance whose friend told me that their cat was missing. You see how bad this is? Meanwhile, I have no idea that this was going to blow up into anything. Lee said she had no idea the post would become part of a rumor mill that would spiral into the national consciousness. She has since deleted the Facebook post, which is why screen caps are circulating instead. Other posts have also contributed to the false allegations, including a photo of a man holding a dead goose. Remember, this was the one, it's a black guy, and he's got a goose, and so therefore. But, was he a goose farmer? What kind of goose? Where did it come from? No one knows, but he's black, so therefore it's terrible. And it was taken in Columbus, Ohio. At least it was Ohio, but not Springfield. But it was spread by some online as evidence of the claims about Springfield. Graphic video of a woman who allegedly killed and tried to eat a cat was also found not to have originated in Springfield, but in Canton, Ohio, and does not have any connection to the Haitian community. So a non-Haitian person, not in Springfield, who is crazy, killed a cat and tried to eat it. And meanwhile, by the way, there's crazy people in the woods trying to shoot Donald Trump. There's also weirdos everywhere, as it turns out. By the way, maybe you heard of not Hannibal Lecter, but real life guy who killed people and tried to eat them. Yeah, so there's a bit of crazy all over the place, shall we say. Local police and city officials have repeatedly said there is no evidence of such crimes in Springfield. And believe me, cops want to press charges against anybody they can. They want to be a part of a big story. But these cops say, no, there's no such story. But that hasn't stopped the lies from spreading across the country and igniting a national frenzy that landed on the presidential debate stage last week. Former President Donald Trump and his running mate, who is the senator for Ohio, by the way, one of the two anyway. They have a better one, Sherrod Brown. He's running for re-election, by the way. Support him. But the other one who's terrible, JD Vance, who's been in the Senate for 15 minutes, was born less than an hour away from Springfield, sadly, have repeated the baseless allegations. Lee said she never imagined her post would become fodder for conspiracy theories and hate. And why would she have found out about what happened in the UK? It was, after all, the UK and not the US, but it did happen in English. And she's clearly a Facebook person, but, paying no attention, I'm sure, to UK politics. I'm not a racist, she said through heavy emotion, adding that her daughter is half black. Oh my gosh. Some of my best friends are black. And she herself is mixed race and a member of the LGBTQ community. Everybody seems to be turning it into that and that was not my intent. It sounded like everything seems to be turning into what? Into members of the LGBTQ community? Well, congratulations to that community, but that's not what it meant. Everybody's turning her post, her dumb, very easy to misconstrue, maybe, as racist post into, well, racist. The anti-immigrant fervor in Springfield led to schools and municipal buildings closing on Thursday and Friday after city officials received bomb threats. Lee said she pulled her daughter out of school and is now worried about her safety with so much attention on her family. She's also concerned for the safety of the Haitian community, thanks a lot, which she said she did not intend to villainize en masse. But looking back on it, maybe that was a terrible, terrible, terrible post. I feel for the Haitian community, she said. If I was in the Haitians' position, I'd be terrified too, worried somebody's going to come after me because they think I'm hurting something that they love, and that, again, that's not what I was trying to do. I was trying to do it and not get blamed. Probably. Immigrant advocacy groups have said these kinds of claims can be dangerous. The Haitian American community in Springfield, Ohio, and around the country is feeling targeted and unsafe because dehumanizing, debunked, and racist conspiracies are being advanced at the highest levels of American politics and are still being repeated. Vanessa Cardenas, the executive director of America's Voice, a nonprofit that advocates for immigration reform, said in an email, the false claim that black immigrants are violently attacking American families by stealing and eating their pets is a powerful and old racist trope that puts a target on people's backs, and it's turbocharged in the era of MAGA when political violence has become commonplace, and we have already witnessed violent incidents incited by such rhetoric. Lee said there are very real problems related to Springfield's population boom that caught the struggling city off guard. Springfield was not prepared to address the housing, healthcare, and other services needs that came with the sudden increase in new residents over the last 5 years when Haitians arrived, many of them with protected status under federal law. Still, she never imagined that her Facebook post would set off a national news cycle. I didn't think it would ever get past Springfield, she said. Well, it did, and words have power and they have meaning, and you're an idiot for doing this. And yes, there is something, I think, to be made of the fact that this is exactly how they tried to wriggle out from under responsibility for the riots exploding in the UK. And it may very well be that these are two enormously stupid people who really did have intention to rile people up, but just locally, and didn't know that it was going to catch on nationally, and that could certainly be the case. But it is also interesting that, either they came to the same play of wriggling out from under it by saying, I didn't know it was going to turn into this on their own, which is possible. I mean, that people plead ignorance to everything all the time. Or they said, how did they deal with this in England when somebody got blamed for this, and maybe I'll adopt the same strategy. Or, you don't have to make it all up, right? It is all out there. There are propaganda operations being run, some by Russians, some by other foreigners, some by domestic idiots of our own vintage, that will tell you, will advise you to either do things this way from the beginning, or this is how you get out from underneath it. It's not such a creative response that it could only have been authored by one source and then disseminated to people who are doing this. It's very easy to see them, again, coming upon this excuse on their own. It's just weird. And I don't know. I wish that we would, somehow hold these guys accountable, even if they thought it was a giant mistake in the end. Well, the fact that you had no idea that it was going to explode and go viral really doesn't have that much to do with it. We can temper how long we'll, punish you for it, but punish you for it is what we ought to be doing. Now here, this will make for an interesting ending, and this might end up eating up all the rest of the show. But this is, I just realized. Okay, I also have this other thing naturally that I should be following up on, because I raised the specter of coordinated propaganda campaigns. I wanted to make mention at least of. You remember that the latest one involved an outfit by the name of Tenet media, and that they were the ones funneling cash to people in order to do the propaganda work that was mentioned. Oh, and I forget now the names of all the various right-wing provocateurs that were taking cash in exchange for disseminating these rumors. But I do remember Tenet Media being the pass-through here. And this news reported by Mother Jones is kind of interesting. Thought you might want to get up to date on it. Tenet Media shudders after being accused of taking $10 million in covert Kremlin funding. They absconded with the money. Nothing to see here, it says in the subheader. And Mother Jones, Anna Merlan, the senior reporter putting this piece out here. A contributor for Tenet Media announced on Twitter last Thursday, that the company had abruptly shuttered 1 day after the Department of Justice unsealed an indictment that accused it of being covertly funded by employees of a Russian state-controlled media outlet. Taylor Hansen, a self-described field reporter, that's in quotes, for the outlet, wrote that Tenet has ended after the DOJ indictment. Tenet's media's founders, Canadian conservative YouTuber Lauren Chen and her husband Liam Donovan, have not publicly commented on the allegations against Tenet, nor has Canadian far-right activist Lauren Southern, a different Lauren, a Tenet contributor who appeared in many of their videos. Other prominent contributors to the site, including far-right commentator Tim Pool, that was one of the named mouthpieces in the story from last week, described themselves as victims in the Tenet scandal who were unaware that employees of RT, the Russian state media entity, were secretly funding the company. Poole announced on Thursday that he has been contacted by federal investigators, writing, "The FBI believes I have information relevant to an ongoing criminal investigation and has requested a voluntary interview, and I'll be offering my assistance in this matter." That's the way to handle it publicly. The Daily Beast reported that Chen's contract with Blaze TV, that was, what's his name? Glenn, thank God I can no longer remember his name. Glenn, I'll have to look it up. You believe that? Thank God I've forgotten his name, the Blaze. Glenn Beck, that's right. I'm like, no, the other Glenn is my stupid governor, Glenn Youngkin. He's not doing this, although he believes the stories. The Glenn Beck, I remember he was like the biggest thing since Rush Limbaugh for a brief period of time. Then he had some weird mental breakdown. Oh, he was always mentally questionable, I think, and then kicked off of mainstream TV and started the Blaze. And then, of course, wow, what do you know? Blaze TV turns into a Russian propaganda network. How odd. Anyway, the Daily Beast reported that Chen's contract with Blaze TV, where she also made regular appearances, has been terminated. The company has also deleted her page on their website, wiped out episodes of her podcast called Pseudo Intellectual, that's funny, from Spotify. YouTube told NBC News' Brandy Zadrozny that it had deleted Tenet Media's channel and 4 others operated by Chen in light of the indictment and, quote, after careful review by the FBI, I guess. And then you just said, okay, I guess now we'll moderate. Writing that the steps were part of ongoing efforts to combat coordinated influence operations. For now, Tenet Media's Twitter profile, Instagram page, TikTok, and Rumble pages all remain online, though none have been updated since the indictment was announced. Just, an interesting update. They got caught, and in response, I guess they put out a couple of statements at the beginning saying, no, it's all untrue. And then, ka-chung, shutter the operation and disappear from public view. How odd. It's sort of, the thing that you would expect the instructions would say. Here's what you do when you get caught. Shutter the place and run. All right. So I mentioned that there was a long read that, now we'll never get through it. But this I thought was just super interesting in terms of we've touched on a number of topics that I guess would make you think that such things were going on. Speaking about, the criminal oligarchy that runs Russia. I mean, the literal blurring of lines between government and organized crime there. And their ideas about influencing American elections and American politics in general, and then everybody saying, I don't know, I guess it kind of works, and then worrying that the Chinese and Iranians might want to do the same thing. This is a story, I think, in that vein. Reported by the Washington Post over the weekend, which, well, I guess before the weekend, actually, but I only discovered it heading into the weekend. It's from September 12th, which is, Thursday. Get this headline. Iran turns to Hell's Angels and other criminal gangs to target critics. And remember, I think there was some mention toward the end of the week of, again, the allegation that Hell's Angels were involved in some kind of strange political story. Although, as I recall, the story there was A, false, and B, that the Hell's Angels were going to ride to the rescue somehow. And I don't know what. Was it in response to issues in Springfield? I can't remember what the reference was, but maybe you do. But this puts a different light on all of it. Iran has cultivated ties, it says, with criminal networks in the West to carry out a recent wave of violent plots in the United States and Europe. Let's read a little bit of it, what we can get in before the end of today's show, just to give you some idea. And then we can recommend that you go and read the rest of it. Greg Miller, Soad Mekhenet, Mekhenet. Soad is his last name. And Kate Brown, Kate with a C, by the way, have put this piece together. It is datelined London, but obviously things are going on around the world in this story. In the months before his attackers tracked him down, this is scene setting here, the exiled Iranian journalist had been moved in and out of safe houses by London's Metropolitan Police, given a secret way to signal rescue units, and had monitoring devices installed in his home. British authorities had done even more to protect Iran International, the London-based satellite news channel that airs the weekly program of this journalist, whose name is Pouria Zerati. And the satellite channel, Iran International, has built an audience of millions in Iran, despite being outlawed by the Islamic Republic. Police assigned a team of undercover officers to safeguard the channel's employees, arrested a suspect caught surveilling the station's entrances, put armored cars outside its headquarters, and for one 7-month stretch last year, convinced the networks to move temporarily to Washington. Oh, thanks a lot. None of these measures managed to protect Zerati from the plot that Iran is suspected of setting in motion this year. What was that plot? On March 29th, he was stabbed 4 times and left bleeding on the sidewalk outside his home in the London suburb of Wimbledon by assailants who were not from Iran and had no discernible connection to its security services, according to British investigators. Long story short here, the Iranians have figured out, well, they're monitoring all of our known agents pretty closely. We're not going to be able to carry out this attack with our own agents. Let's hire other people. And who will do this? Well, there are lots of criminal elements all over the world who will stab anybody for money, whether it's political or not. So let's just use them. And you would think, as a religious organization, essentially, this is a theocracy, you'd think maybe they'd say, let's not hire criminals to carry out violent attacks. But I guess if you're a fundamentalist, extremist religious sect, well, then you might not be all that interested in peaceful practice of religion after all. Instead, it says here, Iran hired criminals in Eastern Europe who encountered few obstacles as they cleared security checks at Heathrow Airport, spent days tracking Zerati, and then caught departing flights just hours after carrying out an ambush that their victim survived, perhaps intentionally, investigators said, to serve as a warning, but not trigger the fallout that would come with the murder of a British citizen. But yeah, Eastern Europeans are going to be able to move back and forth throughout the rest of Europe a lot easier than Iranian agents. Iran's alleged reliance on criminals rather than covert operatives underscored an alarming evolution in tactics by a nation that U.S. and Western security officials consider one of the world's most determined and dangerous practitioners of transnational repression, a term for government's use of violence and intimidation in others' sovereign territory to silence dissidents, journalists, and others deemed disloyal. Perhaps you've heard of this tactic when a Saudi individual living as a permanent resident in the United States traveled to Turkey and was waylaid there in the consulate in where was it, in Istanbul, and murdered and dismembered. You remember that whole thing happening? Again, that was by Saudi agents in Turkey, which is, as it happens, not Saudi Arabia. Anyway, senior security officials said that the use of criminal proxies by governments has compounded the difficulty of protecting those who have sought refuge in the United States, Europe, and elsewhere. Big difference between the Saudi attack there is the Sauds sent Saud agents to Turkey to carry out this attack. The twist here is hiring international criminal types to say, go to Turkey, we're going to lure this guy to the consulate, and then you kill him when you get there, and then it won't be traced to us. Except most people will say, who would want that guy dead? And they'd figure it out. But yeah, how do you like this? This is amazing. Security services formerly focused on tracking operatives from Russia's GRU spy agency or Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC for short. Now they confront plots handed off, often through encrypted channels, to criminal networks deeply embedded in Western society. In recent years, Iran has outsourced lethal operations and abductions to Hells Angels biker gangs, a notorious Russian mob network known as Thieves-in-Law, or a heroin distribution syndicate led by an Iranian narco trafficker and violent criminal groups from Scandinavia to South America. This story reveals new details about how Iran has cultivated and exploited connections to criminal networks that are behind a recent wave of violent plots secretly orchestrated by elite units of the IRGC and Iran's Ministry of Intelligence. It is based on interviews with senior officials in more than a dozen countries, hundreds of pages of criminal court records in the United States and Europe, as well as additional investigative documents obtained by the Washington Post from security services. This story reveals... We did that one just a second ago. With hitmen it has hired in the criminal underworld, Iran has commissioned plots against a former Iranian military officer living under an assumed identity in Maryland, an exiled Iranian-American journalist in Brooklyn, a women's rights activist in Switzerland, LGBTQ plus activists in Germany, and at least 5 journalists at Iran International, as well as dissidents and regime critics in a half dozen other countries, according to interviews and records. And I've heard allegations, by the way, I think it's mentioned in the story, that China has a similar program, although they don't necessarily resort to the outright attacks, but they definitely intimidate dissidents who leave the country once they trace where they've gone to. Other nations have begun to embrace this strategy. India's security services, you've heard this story, enlisted criminal groups to kill a Sikh activist in Canada last year and target another in New York. According to U.S. and Canadian officials, Russia, which has traditionally relied on its own agents for lethal operations, turned last year to mob elements in Spain to kill a military helicopter pilot who had defected to Ukraine and then resettled in the Mediterranean. Iran's turn to criminal proxies has in part been driven by necessity, officials said, reflecting the intense scrutiny that Iran's own operatives face from Western governments. The attack on Zerati avoided these Iran-focused defenses. We're not dealing with the usual suspects, said Matt Jukes, the head of counterterrorism policing in the UK and assistant commissioner for special operations with Scotland Yard. He acknowledged that Zarati's assailants remain at large more than 5 months after his stabbing. They've been identified and their travels traced to countries in Eastern Europe, but have so far not been detained. Officials said the suspects remain in Eastern Europe and that other security services are cooperating with British authorities, but they declined to explain why the suspects have not been taken into custody. What we've got is a hostile state actor that sees the battlefield as being without borders and individuals in London every bit as legitimate as targets as if they were in Iran, said Jukes. Along with Britain's domestic spy agency, MI5, the Metropolitan Police have tracked more than 16 plots from the Islamic Republic over the past 2 years, according to British intelligence and security officials, many of whom spoke on condition of anonymity, of course, to discuss the sensitive topic. Time for us now to play our way out of here. The United States has faced a similar wave of threats, including several that have been detailed in criminal indictments connecting biker gangs in Canada, the most polite biker gangs you ever found, and mob elements in Eastern Europe to planned assassinations commissioned by Iran. Matthew G. Olson, who heads the National Security Division at the Justice Department, said that Iran is clearly at the top of the list of states that year after year seek to kill or abduct dissidents and journalists outside their borders. Other nations, particularly China, there you are, seek to intimidate or repress diaspora populations, Olson said, but Iran is consistently focused on actions at the extreme end of transnational repression because of their lethal targeting. All very interesting, I think, and some amazing examples. A very long article. I think I'd like to read it over. I think we'll be referring back to this a couple of times, but just another weird, I don't know what, entry in the international permission structure, I guess, that maybe Donald Trump has inspired people around the world to say, to hell with the legal systems. We're just going to do what we want to do, where we want to do it, and see whether anybody can make us stop. All right, time now to hand things off to Justice Putnam. You can't stop him with the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy next, right here on the completely legal Netroots Radio.
From netrootsradio.com. You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
News from the Pacific Northwest today. More than 300 non-citizens have been added to Oregon's voter rolls over the last 3 years due to a state data entry error. I guess they won't be making anything of that, right? And down in Arizona, a man accused of online terror threats has been arrested in Montana. People are moving all over the place. Keeping track of them here on Netroots Radio. See you tomorrow.